Welcome to the Love to Grow podcast, where leaders grow their leadership. This is episode 4, and we really are going somewhere with this perspective thing. And I have been hammering perspective every episode. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to undo an old perspective. And it's extremely practical. You're going to need to take out a pencil, get a pen, take notes, because I got some practical information for you. And listen closely. I'm going to talk to you on the other side of this, but this is a good one. So last week, I talked a lot about what causes us to lose momentum when it comes to having this new perspective. And I named 4 things that causes us to lose momentum. One of those 4 things I named was reverting back to an old perspective. But it's really important for us to understand how not to allow ourselves to revert back to an old perspective. And today, what I'm going to talk about is how to truly undo an old perspective. If you can undo the old perspective, chances are you won't revert back to an old perspective. So today, let's dive into it. Let's make sure the old perspective stays old and you never go back to it. You ready? Let's get to it. So I talked a little about how going into 2026, at the beginning of 2026, I started doing certain things to get my life going. And I told you I had to have a new perspective. I had to have the right perspective. And my perspective has truly shifted everything. If y'all go back to episode 2, I talked about the 3 questions you had to answer to have this new perspective. The 3 questions were, who are you? Whose are you? And what you can do. So now that's a new perspective. And when you have that new perspective, a lot of times you're going to try to actively live based on that. But the problem is you have the amount of years you've been living with an old perspective. And no matter how hard you try, that old perspective will try to reveal itself back to you. So you have to actively undo it. And I came up with a system. I started a system this beginning of this year. I've been actively working on this system to undo an old perspective. And it's 4 areas you have to focus on and work on every single day to undo an old perspective. You have to work on yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. And today I'm going to talk about the ways that we can undo an old perspective physically. So let's get into that. And so again, I have a system. This is a system that I've been using, and I actually have a community of people that's actually doing it with me. And I'm going to share some of this system with you. So I want you to think about every time you're working on yourself, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, what you're doing is you're growing the new perspective and you're destroying the old perspective. You're growing the new perspective and you're destroying the old perspective. And it's important that we do this because we truly have to do all we can for the old perspective never to show its face again in your life. And so think about every time you do something physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially, that new perspective becomes more real to you. You start to really believe the very new perspective you have of yourself. If you keep actively doing these things, you will start to come along with the way you think. Not only that, the people you connected to will truly start to see you in the way that you see yourself. And so let's get into the area of physical, how you work on yourself physically. I have a system. I'm going to share a little bit about it today. And it's important that you lock in. It's important that you try this. And again, you're not going to be perfect in this journey. But every time you work on yourself in this way, you're going to grow. So let's break the area of physical down into what we call a sub area. And so what we want to do to get this journey started for you is I want you to have these sub areas that I came up with. And I want you to start applying them to your life. And so here are some of the sub areas that falls under the area of physical, of working on yourself, right? So one of the sub areas is to work on yourself to develop your strength. The second way is to work on yourself to develop yourself nutritionally. The third way is to improve your cardiovascular efficiency. And the fourth way is to improve your flexibility. And so I'm going to give you what we call a minimum day of completion of doing these different sub areas. When you hear these minimum completions of these sub areas, then your task is to do a total of 21 days out of the month. You can start it this month of June 2026 of trying to do at least one of these sub areas every day for at least a total of 21 days. This is a little bit of the system. So let's talk about what the specifics of the completion of the minimums of these sub areas. So let's talk about strength. And so we want to develop your strength, get you stronger. So what you could do, a total body workout, or what I like to call as a personal trainer, a push, a pull, and a leg workout. And so the push, pull, and leg workout, I want you to try to do a minimum of 2 sets of a push, a pull, and a leg exercise. Or you can do 2 sets per muscle group. And so we can break the body down to parts. So you can say that upper body, we can say it's your chest, shoulders, back, and arms. And you can just say the lower body be just your legs. All right, and that can include the front and back of your legs, glutes, whatever you want to say. But a minimum day of completion for this would be at least 2 sets of each muscle group. 2 sets of each muscle group. This is a minimum amount of completion to have a day of working yourself physically in the sub area of strength. So that's strength. Now let's move on to nutrition. So a minimum day of completion in this system would be for you to get 2 servings of anywhere between 4 ounces or 8 ounces of a lean protein or minimally processed plant protein, in addition to 2 servings of fruit a day, in addition to a minimum of 16 ounces of water. That would be a minimum completion of nutrition in this system. You also can do cardio as a sub area. And so the minimum completion for cardio, the sub area cardio, would be a minimum of 20 minutes of any form of zone 2 cardio. You can do a walk, jog. You can ride a stationary bike. You can ride a bike. You can do rowing exercises. You can do any various sports or recreation that you enjoy doing. But a minimum of 20 minutes would be completion for the sub area of cardio. And finally, flexibility. Any active or static stretching for at least 10 minutes or some program that can help you improve flexibility. And so anytime you complete this, at least one day at a time, or any sub area you choose, that will be working on yourself physically. But your task is to choose one sub area for the month of June to work on yourself. And again, this is something that I've come up with as a system. This is part of a system, of a larger system that I have. And the goal for you all is to see yourself in this new perspective and actively work on yourself to grow that perspective. And the cool thing is that if you need help with that, I have multiple resources available. If you join my Patreon for free, you can have access to the system itself to see some of the resources and see some of the sheets and see some of the content and resources to help you, to get you connected to know more about what you need to do. But beyond that, I also have an opportunity for you all, if you're serious about working on yourself and growing yourself, your personal growth and development. In the Patreon, you have tiers. The most basic tier, you can have access to me one-on-one, but as you go up the tiers, you get more access. And so obviously part of me is trying to help people improve their life. Obviously I want to see leaders grow, but you have to do the work on your own. You have to do the work, but there's opportunities. And what I want you all to know is that the only way for us to undo an old perspective is to replace it with a new. And the only way to grow a new perspective is to consistently work on yourself daily, physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. Here's the thing. Today, we're talking about how to work on yourself physically. And that within itself deserves its own episode. But we have so many other things to talk about. And we're going to get into more. But if you are serious about wanting to grow with your personal growth and development, you want to grow your leadership, you need a system. I've already worked on a system. I have a proven system that works, a proven system to help you with discipline, a proven system to help you with habits, and a community of people that's working on themselves every single day this way. And this is something that you're at all interested in, something you definitely should consider subscribing to my Patreon. And you can find links to the Patreon in the description. And you also, if you have any questions, follow me on all platforms, follow me on Patreon. Let's continue working on your personal growth and development. Let's continue to grow your perspective, because it's this perspective that takes our life from where it is to where we want to go. And as I said before, anything we want to have in this life, we have to do more. And in order for us to do more, we have to become more. Let's become more together. Let's grow our leadership. Let's take it one day at a time. Let's do this as a community. Y'all be blessed. Man, I'm really happy I got a chance to check this episode out. Again, extremely practical, but it's only practical. It only works if you apply it. And why not apply it with something that's already built in? Why not apply it with something that's already established? A system that's already been created, a community of people that's going to hold you accountable. Look at the description, look at the Patreon. You can join for free, but if you really want to get the most value out of it, consider subscribing to one of the tiers. But thank y'all so much for your time. I can't wait to share more about how to undo an old perspective. Let's take this journey together as we grow into our leadership, because I know if you're listening, you love to grow. Y'all be blessed.